Okay, hi. So I'm Shucong Zhang from Samsung AI Center Cambridge, and I'm really excited to share our work, SummaryMixing, which is a linear model for speech processing. Okay, so firstly, we'll look at the background, which is the quadratic complexity of self-attention, and then there are actually some previous works showing that self-attention may not actually be useful for speech recognition. Therefore, we propose our linear model, SummaryMixing, and through experiments, we show that our linear model can actually match or even outperform the performance of self-attention for speech processing. And finally, we will have a conclusion and some extensions. Okay, sorry for that. So you may already be very familiar with self-attention, but just to make sure we are in the same page, I will quickly go through self-attention, especially for the quadratic time part. So self-attention just transforms the input sequence X into the query sequence Q, the key sequence K, and the value sequence V. Also, for each single time step, the query vector Q will interact with the entire key sequence K to generate a sequence of attention weights, and this will cause a linear time. And then the output of self-attention is just a weighted sum of the value sequence with respect to the attention weights, and this step will also cause a linear time. Therefore, for each single time step, the cost is linear, and for t time steps in total, the cost will be quadratic, and that could be really bad for speech processing, because t here in speech processing is the number of frames, and it can easily reach hundreds or even thousands, and making the self-attention really slow. But actually, there are previous works showing self-attention may not be useful. So, for example, for trained transformer and conformer models, it has observed that for many layers, the attention weights are actually distributed around one single point. And for example, here for the time step t, that single point will also be the weight vector in the V sequence. And for our other attention weights, they are almost around zero. So, if we look at this, then it means the output of the self-attention is actually quite close to just the single vector Vt, and Vt is just nothing else but a linear transformation of the current input xt. So in this way, the self-attention actually behaves as a linear causal operation. Also, for branch former, which is another state-of-the-art ASR model, people have observed that the attention weights are almost uniformly distributed along time. So this means the attention is merely just computing an average. But if we just use the average for the output of each time step, and we just compute the average once, then still it means the quadratic self-attention behaves like a linear operation. So we have seen from previous works that for SOTA ASR models, the self-attention actually behave like linear operations. So we asked, can we just completely throw away this quadratic causal self-attention and just to use linear models to do speech processing? And based on this, we propose our model, SummaryMixing. So before we dive into the details, we will have a comparison of how each time step interacts with other time steps. So let's just focus the lines in these two figures, and those lines indicate the interaction between time steps. So for the figure 1, which is the self-attention figure, so we can see those lines are quite dense and complicated, because for self-attention, each time step interacts with each time step, and these pairwise operations will make the time complexity to be quadratic. However, for our summary mixing, you can see the length is quite simple. So basically, we just compute an average of each time step, and that's it, nothing else. And then the average will feed back into each time step. So because the average is only computed once, our summary mixing will have a linear complexity. And now let's look at our model in detail. So summary mixing just transform a input sequence X to a sequence of hidden state H. So for each time step, there will firstly be a global branch, and the global branch will just use a transformation to transform each time step, and then it will compute the average of all those transformations. So the output vector S bar, that single vector, will be used to summary the entire information of the input sequence. Also, we have a local branch which captures the local information, and that one is also quite straightforward. It will just be a transformation of the current input. And finally, we combine the local information LT as well as the average vector S bar. So we do a concatenation and do another further transformation, and that will be the output of summary mixing. And since the average vector S bar is only computed once, so our model has a linear complexity. Okay, so we have tested our proposed massive with two ASR models because they are the currently SOTA models. One is branch former and the other is conformer. So actually we do not need to worry about the details of those two models because summary mixing is an alternative to self-attention. So applying our method is really straightforward. We just replace the self-attention module with the summary mixing, and everything else is exactly the same. So firstly, we will do the efficiency measurements between summary mixing as well as self-attention. So we have two plots here. One is training time against the different ultra's lengths. The other one is training peak run against different ultra's lengths. And we can see clearly that self-attention has a quadratic complexity for both two scenarios. But for summary mixing, it is a linear model. We also test the decoding efficiency, so we measure the real-time factor. So real-time factor is a measurement for the speed of decoding. The lower, the better. And we can see that after a threshold for self-attention, the real-time factor increases linearly, but that's not the case for summary mixing at all. So we have shown that summary mixing indeed has a linear complexity, and it is much faster and efficient than self-attention. And now let's look at the experimental results. So we tested summary mixing with conformer and branch former on linguistic speech. So these numbers are kind of old because it was like 1 year ago, and now we have new results. I will talk that later, but the new result, for example, for Titouan is 4 point something, and but the conclusions remains the same. So for example, here, for the linguistic speech that clean, our summary mixing matched self-attention, and for test clean, it's either a little bit better or have the same performance, and also for test other, it's either a little bit better or have the exact same performance. So we test if our model can generalize to other languages as well as other scenarios. So we have common voice Dutch, common voice Italian, Common Voice Flash, as well as AI Show, which is a Chinese dataset, and the Titouan 2, which is a dataset of lecture-style talks. And we can see that for all the languages and for all the scenarios, SummaryMixing is either equivalent or a little bit better than self-attention. So then we ask, is SummaryMixing only useful for ASR, or is it also useful for other speech tasks? So we extend our experiment to spoken language understanding, and we can see that on the SNR dataset as well as Google Command Search, SummaryMixing is still a little bit better than self-attention. So you may wonder, for SummaryMixing, it only uses one single vector to summarize the information of the entire sequence. Then, for long utterances, will that single vector be enough to capture all the necessary information for good performance? Therefore, we compare the performance of self-attention and SummaryMixing by plotting the word error weights against the different utterance lengths through the Titouan 2 development set. And we can see clearly for both of the short sequences and for the long sequences, SummaryMixing is better for self-attention. So actually that single averaging vector works well even for long sequences. Okay, so the conclusion is the quadratic complexity self-attention may not be useful for speech tasks, and we propose SummaryMixing, which is a linear model for speech processing, and the experimental results shows that the linear model match or even outperform self-attention. So we also have some extensions. So for all the models in this presentation, they are all non-streaming models, but also we extend this to the streaming ASR. So streaming ASR nowadays can be very fast. So for example, we have the caption here, but we will show in poster session that SummaryMixing will make the streaming ASR systems even faster and even better. Also, we tested that SummaryMixing with a relatively simple architecture design. Will that be useful as a general purpose speech processing model? Therefore, we build self-supervised learning models with SummaryMixing, and we test it on different downstream tasks. And still, the results are quite successful. And also, we will show that in the poster session. Also, for all the models and the training recipes in this presentation, as well as these two extensions, they are implemented through SpeechBeam, and we open source the code at this URL. So if you are interested, please feel free to check our code. And also, we are hiring for interns. So if you are a student and if you like to work cool projects like this, please feel free to contact either of us. Thank you.